Good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast, way out there in Hawaii, American Samoa, Northern Mariana Islands, Guam. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. It's deceptively sunny and chilly at the same time. So that's all. I like it. I like it when it's that way because it kind of makes it a fun day to go out there in the fall. I'm excited to get into today's training on the worst mistake government contractors make, especially small businesses, right? The worst mistake we make. And the reason I'm excited is because it's such a straightforward mistake to overcome, right? And so I'm going to talk to you about overcoming it. But before we get to that, I just wanted to give you a tip for those showing up early and on time. I really appreciate that you do that. It helps me by knowing people are here, showing up, right? That's always good. And then also I appreciate it because LinkedIn, when they see you here and engaging in the chat, etc., LinkedIn will push the notice out to more people saying, hey, we've got a party going on over there at Neil's training. Why don't you go join them? And so my tip for you today, and it's coming straight out of 7 Habits for Highly Effective People. This is my all-time favorite business book. I've been reading it for longer than 20 years. I read it every single year, but it's a fantastic book for baseline for personal and professional habits. And the tip I want to give you is from habit number 1, be proactive. And I just want to say something I'm pretty positive everybody knows, right? That we should be proactive, not reactive. And so one way that you can be proactive is to look at your schedule and try to eliminate 95% of what is on your task and go, well, what's the one thing that I can work on so that I'm proactively moving myself or my company forward in the direction I want to go. As you think about your day, as you think about your week, proactively drive it in the direction you want to go instead of letting it just happen to you. I hear people sometimes get caught up in, I got all these fires and these things, and that's fine. I mean, that happens. You can't avoid it, but you've got to make a decision to be proactive for some component of your day or some part of your week. That's my tip for those of you showing up early and on time. Again, thank you for doing so. Let me just go ahead and get my screen shared, and we're going to dive into today's training, talking about the worst mistake we make as government contractors. And when we reverse this, we can start having a lot more success, right? So if you saw the LinkedIn notice that I put out there for today's training, I said, what if the opportunity comes knocking on your door or wants to come knocking on your door, but can't find your door, right? That's a horrible scenario. Somebody wants to find you or wants to buy from you, et cetera, but they can't even find you. That is what I'm suggesting is the worst mistake. We're not making it easy for our buyers to reach us, our teammates. Or what if we're out there, but we're not listening, right? An example of that that's not in today's training, but that I know of is people who put info@mycompany.com as their email address on marketing material, let's say your capability statement, but no one's really monitoring the info at, right? It's just coming in, it's going into the inbox, it's going below. And so if you're not listening, then what's the point of opportunity knocking on your door, right? And here's the obvious truth. If opportunity knocks on your door, but no one's listening, whether somebody's home or not, it does not matter. Opportunity will move on to the next door. I used to sell vacuum cleaners door to door. I literally would knock on a door twice, once, and then a second time, really nervous because I'm not trying to wake somebody up, but I would knock and then I just move to the next house, right? I got to keep moving. And buyers are no different than door-to-door salespeople. We're moving on to the next person who can help us. And so I really want to make sure that we address this as we go forward in today's training to make sure the next time opportunity is looking for your door, they can find it. And the next time they knock on your door, you're listening and you open it. Today, I'm going to go through why you need to be visible. So when you think about opportunity trying to find you, it's all about visibility. Can they see you? Where they look, where federal buyers and teammates, but in particular, where federal buyers look for you. And then I'm going to wrap it up with some tips on what you can do right now to increase your visibility and to begin to eliminate this worst mistake. It's one thing for it to happen to us. It's another thing to let it continue to be a mistake that we're dealing with. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I want to welcome you to my federal sales training where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow a process, it goes from A to Z, and that process leads to repeatable, predictable results, and that's what I want for you. If you're looking at my screen, you can see I lay out the 7-step process for federal revenue success. It really is that straightforward. If you're not having the success you want, look at your process, look at this 7-step process and go, am I having success here? No, then look to the step before. And you just reverse engineer all the way back to, do I even know who to talk to at the buying agencies, et cetera. When you look at your process, you can find where you're running into some challenges on having success. And that's why I want to constantly be reinforcing process. Part of the process for today's training, and a lot of you are doing it already, is put your company name and your core competency into the chat. If you're feeling generous, you can put your website link, or you can put your LinkedIn link so people follow your LinkedIn page. You just put an @ and then GovCon Chamber, for example, and mine will come up, right? So put that for your company name, but put your core competency in there and then engage with others. Read through the chats as I'm talking and I'm training you. I'll tend to be on a slide for a few minutes as I'm talking, right? So you can scroll through the chat. The advantage of this training isn't just knowledge and skill sets I'm trying to teach you, but it's this community that you have, that you can meet people and take those meetings offline to begin to develop relationships. So I want you to be able to do that. All right, let's dive into the training. I'm going to come back to this slide. I just needed somewhere to put it. You can look at that later, but I'll come back to that in a minute. Let's start about thinking about visibility, right? How visibility can help you succeed. When I started doing the GovCon Chamber 5 years ago, a little more than 5 years ago now, I guess, one of the things I saw right away was that we, and I'll just put us all in the same place, but we in industry, especially small businesses, would complain about the government. And I looked at this and I said, well, we're kind of invisible to the buyers. Let's blame the buyers once we get in there. And I'm a big fan of blaming the buyers when that makes sense. But I also am a big fan of saying, take responsibility in order to gain control. And what I mean is, I'm going to take responsibility, not blame, but responsibility for the buyers being able to see me. That puts me in control. So what is visibility, right? Visibility is this idea of being findable and attractive is the way I describe it. So findable is when a federal buyer goes to look for you, they can find you. When opportunity comes knocking, they can find your door. That's what findable means. It's really straightforward. And I'll talk about how you do all that, right? Being attractive means that when they come searching for you, and let's say they're searching for a plumber, your marketing material, the stuff that they see will say, hey, we're a plumbing company. That means being attractive means matching the search intent. That buyer had an intent when they were doing some sort of search out there on whatever tool they searched. They said, I'm looking for a plumber. Hey, turns out we're a plumber. And we're not just using the keyword plumber, but we're also saying we fix leaky pipes. We build out whole bathrooms and sinks or whatever, right? And so when I look at your marketing assets, your marketing assets match my search intent. That's what being attractive is. On the right-hand side, I put this box and I say, contracting officers don't buy from the best. This is an often misunderstanding, especially with small businesses. Government buyers do not buy from the best. They don't buy from the best companies. So if you're the best AI company or the best painting company or best cybersecurity company, it does not matter. They do not buy from the best. They buy from the best of who shows up. They buy from the best of those they can find. And so I want to make sure that you're findable and attractive. Your company is attractive, but most importantly, findable by the federal buyers so that when they're ready to buy, they can buy from you. Just trying to see how many times I can put the word buy into a sentence. So let's talk about some reasons on being visible and why it's important. I always think it's important first to start with a why, and it helps you get behind the tasks that I'm going to tell you to do, because the tasks take time. You got to do something, right? But you can knock them out. There's no additional cost. You can do these things I'm about to tell you. But the first thing is the way I wrote these why be visible is I wrote them in order of kind of this reverse engineering. Let me go back. So the way the federal acquisition lifecycle works is if you go from the far right, the end of the life cycle, let's just start with award, but the end of the life cycle for that procurement is award, and then there's an RFP phase before that, a formal market research, and then there's requirements. And the reason I put this here, I just want you to keep it in mind as we move forward. What I'm trying to do is to make you visible as early as possible. I'm shifting to the left. So when I talk about the things on the next slide, think about them from the light bulb moving to the right. So first, I want to get you as visible. I want to get you visible as early as possible. So when you're visible, and program offices who have an idea about where they might want to go, if they can find you to have discussions, if they can see you online. I had a customer reach out to me, or potential customer reach out to me yesterday. They're a larger company and they reached out, but the reason they reached out is because they saw my material that's out there and they saw that I'm preaching what they want to hear, kind of thing. Well, you want to do that same thing And I'll talk more about that in a minute. But when you're letting people know, hey, this is what we do, plumbing services, then if they have a plumbing question or a direction they're trying to go or a challenge, they're going to call you. So the first value of being visible is you can get in early, be brought in just to have conversations, not to even really talk about an opportunity. The second thing is when you're visible and you get in early and you can be seen as a trusted advisor who talk about the future direction of artificial intelligence or cybersecurity, et cetera, you're starting to get known, liked, and trusted by program office personnel. And if you haven't heard this before, people buy from those they know, like, and trust. And so you need to help them begin to know you and to begin to trust you, which lead to like. I always struggle with the fact that like is in the middle, but when they know, like, and trust you, they will begin to invite you in and allow you to start participating in the formal market research, right? This third bullet. And so that might be the informal conversations, like I mentioned, early on, or when they move into the formal market research right here, you'll see RFIs and sources sought. You want to be invited into that. It's not enough for it to drop on SAM. You want to hear about it coming out early and even get invited in. And so there's so many companies out there that can tell you, I got contacted by a contracting officer or the government buyer in one way or another, and they said, hey, I want you to respond to this RFI. I have a customer that's just happened to in the last 4 weeks where they were invited in to participate. And in fact, with them, they were invited all the way in to have discussions with the program office. That's perfect. But the reason it happened is because they were visible. The government found them and they said, come on in, right? They didn't know them before. Number 4, the fourth bullet here is when you're visible, you begin to hear about opportunities and events and other activity going on in an agency. So you want to be visible to that federal buyer so the program office or contracting office, even the small business professionals, they can let you know about things that are coming out. Hey, Neil, there's this opportunity coming out. I want to make sure you're tracking on it. They don't give you any inside information. They're just telling you what's public knowledge. But because they know you, they're able to easily share it with you. Same thing with events. If you're tracking on events, and when I say events, I generally mean virtual events because I don't like to encourage people to travel across the country or even really travel through commute and spend 4 to 6 hours to just go to a physical event. But either way, vendor outreach sessions and in particular advanced planning briefs to industry, these APBIs, these are phenomenal because you begin to hear about what's going on. But sometimes you don't even hear about the APBI until after the fact or something, or maybe you don't even hear about it. And so you want to be invited to that by somebody. Somebody is saying, hey, just make sure you don't miss this. The second to last one here, right, is if you're an 8A firm, you have a good likelihood of getting a direct award. That's what all of us who aren't 8As love about 8As. It's like you can get direct awards. Well, the way you get invited to those is when the contracting officer knows you. If the contracting officer doesn't know you, then they're not going to invite you in to talk about your capabilities and see if it might fit. And this is why it's vitally important for you to be doing outreach. When I teach the 7-step process, step 3 is outreach, picking up the phone, calling as many contracting officers as it takes for you to develop a set of relationships within the agency that you want to get into. And you want to make sure these contracting officers are aware of you and know how to reach you so that when they have a need, they invite you in to market research or even all the way to just, hey, why don't you bid and we'll give you a direct award. It literally can happen that way, right? It doesn't happen every time, but the common denominator there is that all of these 8A firms who have these direct awards are known by the KO. They're known enough to be invited in. And the last one is getting invited to join teams. This is really important. When you're visible out there, and this is, as you're growing and you want to be visible, 3 ways to make money in the federal market: subcontracting under small businesses, prime contracting, and subcontracting under largest. As you get bigger, let's say $1 million or more, you want to be looking at all 3. When you're starting out, just sub under smalls, get experience, get money. But these 3, as you move forward, the 2 that are subcontracting, when they're looking for a teammate that has expertise like you, then they can find you if you're visible. But if you're hiding because you're not making sure you're visible, and I'll talk about that in a minute, if you're not where they're looking, then they're not going to be able to invite you to the team. I was working on an opportunity. It's a $200 million opportunity with one of my past customers. And it's a great opportunity. They were covering down. They had a pretty good team, but they were looking for somebody, a company who could cover down on this one particular task area around risk management framework, right? And so I remember the capture manager who was responsible and their leadership who were looking for that right teammate. I remember helping them reach out. Hey, Neil, do you know anybody who does this, right? This is kind of the experience we're looking for, RMF and maybe in DOD experience. And when you're visible, it makes it easier for people to come find you and add you to those teams. They might add you to a $1 or $2 million opportunity. They might add you to a $1 or $200 million opportunity. If you're brand new, you're not getting on the 1 or 200 million. But same thing with contract vehicles, right? Let people know you have a contract vehicle. I had somebody just reach out. Hunter, by the way, is looking for, I'll just say it right here, just in case anybody is, but Hunter Martin from Bain Group, she's looking for somebody who's on Oasis Small Business. And I was going to send her a recommendation, but I got busy, so I sent it today. But if you're on Oasis Small Business, if you have that pool in the Oasis contract vehicle, let her know. But it's because you're visible that I'm going to find you and make a recommendation. And that's this whole idea around getting invited to join teams. By the way, if you're on a contract vehicle, just throw it in and let me know. As long as you're here on the training, there's almost 80, it looks like about 80 people who are in training. I mean, in today's training live. I'd like to know which ones of you are on different contract vehicles. That way, if I get a hunter coming and asking, I can refer them to you. It also gives me a chance to get some water. Okay, so that was why you want to be visible, right? And sometimes it seems like it's obvious, but we want to make sure we're reminding ourselves why it's important to be findable and attractive. Well, here I want to talk about where they're looking. Where is opportunity knocking? Where are federal buyers looking for you? So there's two ways I broke this down. The first thing is I want you to be findable in these 5 locations. These are the top 5 that I decided I want to share with you. There's other places, but let's start with these top 5 to make sure that you are very findable. The next slide, I'm going to talk about how to be rising above your competitor, et cetera. So the first one is the dynamic small business search tool. This is the tool that companies who are 3 and 4 million and above tend to dismiss and go, oh, that's when you're just getting started. And those are the companies that are going to fail to achieve their goals because they're dismissing the #1 market research tool that the federal buyer uses. DSBS, if you do not know this, combined with your SAM profile, make up your small business profile. It is the only tool that is mentioned within the FAR that says, hey, contracting officers, you must do market research to try to find small businesses that can serve the need before you go full and open. Use tools like DSBS to try to find industry partners or small businesses, right? It is a small business search tool. And so you want to go in there and make sure you fill it out completely. I have extensive training on DSBS because for 5 years, I've watched this help companies be very successful when they start getting DSBS filled out, because it's not just about DSBS, but when it's filled out, you're now findable and you have a better understanding of what you actually do and how you sell it. Go to YouTube. I have a whole playlist on DSBS. If you want guidance step by step by step, it's free, right? It was so important to me because my last business, I was very successful, but I could have been way more successful if somebody had told me about DSBS. Our profile was empty. We were invisible. So the only reason we were successful is because we were knocking on doors. But imagine if the buyer knew we were good and came knocking on our door. That would have massively increased my past success. That's why I push on this with you, is I really want you to be where the buyer is looking. So #1, DSBS. Make sure you get in there and fill that out. The second thing is your agency supplier vendor portals that are out there. I just put a newsletter article out, and Gus or Cecilia, maybe you can put in the link, or anybody actually, you can put in the link to my LinkedIn profile where I have over 100 supplier portals. Most of them are large business, but there's like 20 that are agencies. The reason this is really important is because I said DSBS is the #1 market research tool for federal buyers. But in agencies like HHS, as an example, they have their own supplier portal of vendors who are interested in working with them. So most of their buyers are learning to look at their portal first. And if you can't find what you need, then go to DSBS. This is why, I really want to stress, it's like, go get in there. If they can find what they're looking for, then you want to be making sure you're part of that group that they're seeing and finding. I told you, they don't buy from the best. They buy from the best they find, right? And so HHS, a lot of you who are in my training, you might be there already, but there's many other supplier portals you want to get in there. So there's that one. #3 is the LinkedIn personal profile. So this one's very important. When you're out there engaging with people, whether you're trying to set up meetings, et cetera, they'll come in and do research. So your personal profile is a great way to help them understand you and your company and what you sell and how you can help agencies. But also LinkedIn is a search engine. Somebody will go into, I do this all the time when I'm looking for a company that might be a HUBZone company that does cybersecurity. Yes, I might go to DSBS, but like I said, most of us don't fill out DSBS in a way that I can view. So I also go into LinkedIn and I can type in HUBZone and cybersecurity as an example, and I'll get these firms that are coming back. So if you're A or if you stars 3, things like that, you want that information on your LinkedIn profile. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. But the idea of LinkedIn personal profile compared to the next one, which is the company page, people buy from people. And so when they're searching, they're not going to search and find a company and go, oh, that's great, I'm going to go talk. What they want to see is that, when they look at your profile, they're seeing that attractiveness of, hey, this company, this person representing this company is communicating what I'm looking for. I was looking for a plumber or zero trust architecture, and what they're sharing out there, what they have in their profile is screaming that their company does what I'm looking for. Let me reach out to them. Let me follow them, that kind of stuff. So the LinkedIn company page, another one, it's important. You can have that out there. And then the last one is your website. You want to be findable on your website, and I'll talk about how in a second, but your website needs to be a site that comes up when somebody does a natural type of search. And so they might search again for HUBZone and cyber. Make sure that your website is popping for that. And one way that you can do that is to add a little bit more to your page than just the static pages. I often see people invest a lot of money on their web pages, right? They'll have a whole bunch of web pages and they say all this stuff, but it just looks like pure marketing stuff. And so I'm recommending you add in blog posts. It doesn't have to be frequently. You should do it at least once a week. That can't be that hard if you write to your core competency. But a blog post that begins to talk about things. So an example is if you're in cybersecurity, you might say the top 10 cybersecurity things every federal agency needs to watch out for. Something like that, right? And you could just do a 10 list bullet. If you're feeling really generous to the audience that's coming to you, you can have a paragraph for each one. But when you put blog posts out there and those blog posts are only about your core competency, your website becomes a little bit more visible. It helps people find you through those blog posts that are being indexed on through Google. And by the way, when you write a blog post, you'll see this in a second, down here on number 3, you can repost it in other places. So that's about being findable. If somebody's just searching for a keyword coming back, that's a little bit passive or reactive way of thinking about marketing. But you can also be engaged, right? When I talk about be where federal buyers are looking for you, you have the passive way, and then you have these other ways. So the number one way I believe that you can get in an agency door and start building relationships with program office and acquisition personnel, like the contracting officer, is to respond to RFIs and sources sought. First rule, always make sure that those are in your sweet spot, right? They're in your core competency. But responding to an RFI or a sources sought, that engagement means that you've just written something that is saying, hey, we're an expert at this because look at my response. But the people who are reading it are the program office and the acquisition shop. Those are the people who sent it out to industry saying, hey, we want responses. And so when you respond, they're going to look at it, especially if you do what I've said in previous trainings, which is write for the win, meaning basically write a really good RFI that says, I wish this was an RFP, right? give the contract to me. It doesn't mean they're going to give the contract to you, but what it does mean is that you are now right there in front of, on the desk of a program office personnel, somebody who's going to make the decision about an RFP down the road, and you're right there on a desk of an RFI. Too many people see an RFI response or an RFP response, RFI or sources sought response as something that's like, hey, I wrote it, but I didn't get a win. I didn't get anything. It's like, who cares? If you really think about the purpose of the response from a sales perspective, it's to get visibility. It's not to get the contract. Your job is to get the contract, right? And so you need to go in there and do a lot more work with it. But think about this. If you posted an ad on the radio or on the internet or whatever, the chances of it hitting that program office that you want to work with and that contracting officer you want to have buy from you is almost nil, right? But if you write an RFI response, it's 100% you're going to reach the exact audience you want. So be engaged there, and it increases your visibility. The second thing is meet with these agency. I describe them as focuses of receptivity, focuses of dissatisfaction, and focuses of power. So these are 3 types of people. You can watch previous training I do, but you want to meet, you want to build a list. If you're trying to get into an agency and you want the buyers from within that agency to find you, you want to realize that you need to be looking to contact 100, 200 people, right? I have a customer who was getting this slow start when they were doing calls, and now they're starting to get too busy because they're getting too many introduction calls. Well, that's exactly where they wanted to go, right? That's the type of service we offer, but you can do this all on your own by just picking up the phone and calling into the program office personnel, calling into the contracting shop. And certainly I have a small business specialist directory out there on our website that you can download. It has over 1,000 people's names. So it's not hard to find people's names. The thing you want to do, though, is pick up the phone and call people, and that's a great way to increase your visibility. Don't wait for them to find you on DSBS. Don't wait for them to find you on a website. Reach out and say, hey, I'm right here. All right, that's the proactive approach. And then the last one is social selling on LinkedIn, right? Make sure you're engaged on LinkedIn. So doing thumbs up. And I've got a lot of people who are in our community who have done a really good job following me when I do something. For example, I did something and I shouted out the Navy, et cetera. Well, the Navy got engaged. They're like, oh, Neil, thanks for pushing our stuff out further. And then people in our community have got engaged as well. And they're just engaging kind of with the Navy, even if it's something as simple as a thumbs up. But now those Navy personnel are also seeing these people get engaged. And that's what I mean by engagement on LinkedIn. A thumbs up is straightforward. You can put a comment in. And then the power engagement is to write content. Like I said, write a blog post, for example. Well, you can take that blog off your website and you put it into a LinkedIn post. And when you put it out there and you're writing content that's always around your subject matter expertise, that core competency that you have, then people will begin to point to you and know to come to you for that service. Don't try to be everything. Try to be this one thing and people will know who you are. Okay, so actually, I thought that was my last slide. So I'm going to try to go through this pretty fast, but you can take a screenshot. But here's some immediate tasks you do to take make your company more attractive, right? So the first thing is make sure you think like a buyer. How do they go searching for people? How do you go searching for somebody to help out in your house or your office, right? The main task I really wanted you to pay attention to is think about your top 5 keywords. Determine what those are. If you do cybersecurity, is zero trust architecture one of them? Is risk management framework? Whatever your business is, if you do painting, what are the top 5 keywords or phrases that if somebody puts it into Google, you want to be found? Right? There's all sorts of keywords you can have out there, but what are the 5 you're like, I want to be found every time? An example is my last company, I did SharePoint. So if somebody put SharePoint, I always wanted to be found. If somebody put Microsoft 365, I wanted to be found. Know your keywords and then weave those keywords into all of your marketing assets. Weave it into your capability narrative on DSBS, into your capability statement, your metadata on your capability statement. So that's the properties. If you weave it in there, you will come up higher than your competitors when you weave in your keywords into the metadata of any particular file. And then in LinkedIn, put it into LinkedIn. I've got some suggestions right here about within your headline, in your about section, there's a talks about section, there's an experience section. Make sure your keywords, those 5 top keywords and key phrases are woven into a narrative. You don't have to just put them as keywords, try to weave them into a sentence and that'll be perfect. Your capability statement, you have this. This is something you can do to increase your visibility is go put it on DSBS, go put it on LinkedIn. Of course, it's probably on your website, but make sure it is ungated, meaning I can click on a button and download your capability statement. That's visibility, no friction between me, the federal buyer, and your capability statement. So put it as broadly as you can. Don't send it out, by the way, to contracting officers. I just mean on these different portals, put them so that people can get to it. And the last thing you already saw where I talked about, make sure you're complete in DSBS and then use that information in DSBS and get in all these supplier portals. You will increase your chances of people finding you. So today in the training, what I really try to emphasize is the worst mistake government contractors make is being invisible, right? If buyers can't see you, they can't buy from you. Like I said, they don't buy from the best. They buy from the best who show up. And that's really important for you to pay attention to. If they can't see you, they can't buy from you. So here's a question I had for you. Just last thing in the chat is if I put together some free tool out there that gave you a visibility report, like how, a score for your company's visibility to federal buyers, is that something you'd be interested in? Because it takes time for me to build it. I'm happy to, but I want to see if there's people who'd be interested in it. So, there's 80 or so people in here. Just put that in the chat. Let me know. If you're interested in working with us in any way, reach out to me. Let me know. We have a BD as a service product. Tends to be for companies doing $1 million or more. But it's something I'd be happy to talk to you about. If you like this training, if you get value from this training, throw thank you into the chat. Gus helps me put this together. Cecilia helps me put this together. We like bringing this to you, but and we always appreciate it. Thank you. For all of us, remember, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.